Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
First off, welcome back home from your vacation. It was much needed, I'm sure.
Man.
You look great.
Thanks, man. I've just been trying to catch up on some sleep, I guess, the last couple of days. I don't know that I've stayed up that late as consistently since college, which has been 5 or 6 years now. So it was a fun trip. It was a much needed trip, but I'm glad to be back.
There you go. And obviously you get welcomed back home by some of the biggest news of the offseason yesterday as Lamar Brown makes his decision. You were there live. Talk about the commitment, the recruitment of Lamar Brown, obviously the importance of that commitment yesterday, and that moving forward.
Yeah, this has been a guy LSU's been on since he was a freshman in high school. I mean, this is a decision that was really 4 years in the making for LSU, and they offered him really early in the process. And I think most people kind of had a understanding or an inkling that it was kind of going to be headed to this place for Lamar in terms of just top 10 recruit, committing on ESPN and being one of the top players in the country kind of deal. And so LSU's had him on campus probably as much or more than any recruit that I can ever remember over the last couple of years. I mean, back in his sophomore year, which I believe was 2023, he didn't miss an LSU home game. He was at every single one. And then last year he caught most of them. And then there were a couple games that I think he went to for other schools. But LSU has just consistently been on top of him and been a major player in his recruiting. And it was just going to be about what other team would maybe solidify itself as a true contender in his recruitment. And that proved to be Texas A&M. I mean, they threw the kitchen sink at him and made it a very difficult decision. It was one that I think went into the final day of thinking for him, and ultimately LSU was able to get it done and get honestly one of the premier athletes in this class committed to the program here for July, and really rounds out what I think is one of the best defensive line classes in the entire country.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about next, is this defensive line class that LSU has in 26, obviously headlined by Lamar Brown, and right next to him, Richard Anderson. Talk about this class that they've put together on the defensive front, and the way they've kind of rebuilt this defensive line. As I think the conversation going into last season, the 2024 season, was that you just didn't have the guys, and then they have Ahmad Bro transfer over to that position from defensive end, then Dom McKinley, who's out there power cleaning 400 pounds, and then following it up with Zion Williams, Sadir Mitchell, Bernard Gooden out of the portal, and then now Richard Anderson and Lamar Brown. Talk about the job they've done at the defensive line and what this 2026 class is at that position.
Yeah, so really the last two recruiting classes, you've seen a very deliberate shifting of the guard, I guess, for LSU in recruiting in terms of what they want to do in overhauling this defense. And I think last year last cycle, you really got a chance to see that with the secondary, with guys like DJ Pickett, Aiden Anding at cornerback. You got the linebacker crew that came in, CJ Ross, Keelan Moses, Jaden Breaker, all those guys at linebacker. I think they signed 4 or 5 linebackers in 2025. So they really, devoted, I think, a lot of that attention to the 2025 class, to those other two groups, and this is the one where this 2026 group is the one that they've devoted to the defensive line, and they've done a tremendous job of restocking the future of the program there. Between Brown, you got 5-star Trenton Henderson, who committed earlier in the month. You've got DeAnthony Lafayette, who also committed yesterday with Lamar Brown a little bit later in the day, a guy who's maybe a little bit undersized height-wise, but has some really long arms, and I know that a lot of guys, at least on our recruiting services and scouts in that nature, are very high on long-term. And then Richard Anderson on the interior is about as big of a mauler as you can, and space eater as you could possibly ask to hope for in this class. So they've done a really nice job of replenishing the defensive line with this class. They've got 4 now. I would imagine that they're done, at least in terms of the big swings, but we'll see kind of what pops up here over the last several months. But this is a job well done if they're able to hang on to all four of these guys through December, and really sets up this defensive line for not just immediate success, but long-term success as well.
Yeah, and you brought him up and touched on it a tad. Lafayette obviously committed yesterday, and like you said, a little bit undersized, but very fast. When it comes to what his one of his biggest skills is that speed that he has. Talk about what the Tigers are getting in the 3-star edge rusher.
Yeah, so he's about 6'1", but he's got wingspan that goes upwards of 6'10" from everything that I've been told and seen and read. He's really long, really athletic, really fast. It's just going to be about just kind of what position he maybe fits best at long term. But I think he probably slides in as an edge rusher, and they continue to work with him on his body and just continuing to be more and more physical throughout the entirety of his career. So he was a good pickup like that. He's a 3-star right now. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he creeps into that 4-star range by the end of his recruitment in December. So he's somebody that I know the staff identified here early in the process. I mean, this was a pretty late bloomer. I mean, a lot of teams and programs offered him at the beginning of this year, got him on campus. I think he visited 6 or 7 different schools, between the spring and the summer here, and LSU won out. So that's another big win for Kevin Peoples, who, has done a really nice job. Frank Wilson obviously has, reined guys like Lamar Brown in from a local standpoint. But, Kevin Peoples has been a guy that I think we've been waiting to see just kind of what his impact would be on the program recruiting wise. And between Henderson and Lafayette, I think you can see it's going to be a real beneficial one for LSU if they keep him around long term.
Glenny, can you talk me through this, because this is a question I don't know if there's an answer to, but how much do you think that the current version of NIL and already having the $20 million for LSU football allocated, how much do you think that's already impacted recruiting and the way that they're able to recruit when you see Texas A&M now crying poor?
Yeah, well, it's something they've been preparing for a long time. I think whenever they had kind of settled in on this was the amount of money that they were going to allocate towards football, they were going to max it out. I think it's $13.5 million off of the reports that I've seen. They've been planning for this for a while. I think the majority of that's going to the roster, like the current roster. So I think that they are still using their NIL, their collective for this freshman class. I'm not 100% certain on that, but I think a good portion of the money that they are using for this upcoming class is going to be kind of divided between that collective and what they're going to be doing in rev sharing here. So, look, LSU's in a much better place than they were at this time a year ago. Like any school, I think that they are going to be they're going to be aggressive, but to a point for certain players, and they're not going to overpay for guys that they don't think are going to be good fits for them long term. So you saw that last year with a couple of guys that ended up jumping ship at the last minute, and then they saved that money for the transfer portal and signing the number 1 transfer portal class. So I think that they have an idea of what they want to use, how they want to spend their resources, and obviously they want to be very aggressive in this freshman class, as you can see with the 3 5-stars that they have committed, and then just overall top to bottom, this is a really deep class in terms of just player rating, and I think LSU, or at least on 24/7, has the highest player rating average to commits in the country. So that tells you they're not just bringing in quantity, they're bringing in quality players and guys that they believe are going to be long-term fits for the program.
Is it wrong for me to actually be or feel something about this recruiting class as of right now, because of obviously spurned lately with how recruiting has gone, but it feels like it's starting to turn, like the tide has turned a little bit? But is it, you'll get the comments or the offhand remark about doesn't matter till the ink's dry. But yeah, for some reason, just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. Is it okay for me to actually feel something?
Look, I think you always have to have cautious optimism. I think for LSU fans, with the way that things ended last year with guys like Bryce Underwood and Cade Phillips and things of that nature, you're going to have a little bit more guarded view on recruiting for at least the immediate future. What I will say is that LSU has put itself in a much better position to compete with those kind of last-minute ditch offers that come for these players when it comes closer to signing day. I mean, look, you're absolutely right. This is not done. Nothing is done until they put pen to paper and LSU announces that they've signed player X to the 2026 class. But I think that they have the last recruiting cycle was a big wake up call for the program, and in terms of what they have for NIL and their aggressiveness in that pursuit. And having guys like Austin Thomas on staff too. I mean, this is a guy who now for a couple straight years has done a really good job of being able to allocate money to different places in the roster and knowing exactly what they can and can't spend on a player. So they're still going to be aggressive for all the guys that they want, but like I said, there's going to be a point in time where maybe another program thinks a little bit more or is willing to pour a little bit more resources into that prospect, and LSU will just say, okay, well let's move on to the next one and work and operate in that manner. So I guess that's a long-winded way of saying that maybe this year you can be a little bit more optimistic because of how well LSU has, or how much they picked up the NIL portion of this thing. But relationships are still a part of this too, and LSU and the coaching staff have proven that they can be really good, make really good pitches and get guys committed to the program that are long-term fits for them.
And you talk about this coaching staff as well as a guy like Austin Thomas. It really feels like the puzzle pieces are kind of coming together from an LSU football standpoint, where you have this coaching staff that is so committed to recruiting. When you talk about a guy like Blake Baker and Kevin Peoples, Frank Wilson, Corey Raymond, Cortez Hankton, go down the list. And then from an off-the-field staff where Austin Thomas has started to build out his staff, snagging some guys that were working with him at Ole Miss that put together some really good portal classes, and then bringing a guy like Jeff Martin back home. It feels like it's all kind of moving in the right direction. Is that something that the guys like you and the other ones around the program are kind of feeling this direction of moving positively?
For sure. I mean, LSU had some work to do this summer in terms of replenishing their recruiting staff. I think it's no secret that they've lost a couple of guys. They have gone on to other ventures that were, really in the middle of the recruiting process for them, and just how valuable they were to the program. And so, yeah, you mentioned they bring in, Jeff Martin. That's another really good pickup. Obviously, Austin Thomas brings in his right-hand man as well from Ole Miss, a guy that was with him for a couple of years there with Kelvin. So, there's a lot here that I think is starting to, align, I guess, with the recruiting staff portion, the off-field portion of things, in terms of helping those coaches that are on the field get the best players, know who to talk to, when to talk to them, kind of thing, and just build those relationships organically in the right way. And so, those guys are all on top of it, and I'll be interested to see kind of what other moves could be happening. I think that they're probably not done in terms of adding to their staff, and because of just how valuable, those NIL. How valuable people who understand NIL are right now to the program and to college football as a whole when you're talking about recruiting.
And then just one specifically, Lamar Brown yesterday when he was talking about who the lead recruiter was in his recruitment since, like you said, like 8th or 9th grade, he brought up the name Frank Wilson. This is another notch in the belt of one of the greatest recruiters of all time, and Frank Wilson. Talk about the job he did here specifically, but then the fingerprints he has over the history of LSU over the last 20 years.
Yeah, he's one of one. I mean, he's, I think Lamar talked about, calling him yesterday, or, maybe it was the day before or whatever, and Frank was on the road coming from Lake Charles, and Lamar kind of joked with the media that, Frank almost got in a wreck or something like that. He was so excited. So, look, Frank Wilson is always going to have his imprint on Louisiana, and that's that's what makes it really hard for other programs to pull out-of-state players like that from this state, because of how well he how well connected he is, how much he knows these players, how much time he puts in to the recruiting efforts around this state, and he's just been a really consistent rock, I think, for Kelly, who's coming down from obviously up north, and just to kind of lean on from a recruiting perspective and understanding just how much talent there is in this state, that you don't have to go to Nevada or to California or Florida or wherever to go find a really good athletic player to add to your program for the long term. Like he's done a really nice job with this class, and I think more specifically with Lamar Brown, just how much turnover you've seen with the defensive line coaching positions here over the last couple of years. You always have needed that stable recruiter for LSU in this recruitment specifically, and that's been Frank from really day one. So really nice job by him to get this one over the finish line, and certainly more to come, I guess, as LSU continues to recruit this state as well as any local team can recruit their state. I mean, LSU's right there at the top of it.
And then to talk about this freshman class that's already on campus, the 2025 class, there's been some clips that have come out. I think Carius Kern was bench pressing 425 the other day, and you've just seen some of the highlights, people talking about DJ Pickett and go down the list. Talk about this class that's made it onto campus and the potential of some of the guys to see some playing time here in their freshman season.
Yeah, it's another one of those really cool, awesome, things that you get to see during the summer in terms of just development of the guys and which players are maybe evolving a little bit quicker. And I would certainly throw Carius Kern into that mix. I would throw DJ Pickett into that mix. I think it's going to be, I don't know when in the season, but I think LSU's best version of its defense is going to include DJ Pickett on the field in 2025. So whether that's game 1 against Clemson, game 3 against Florida, I think he's going to find his way into that rotation mix at cornerback. I think Kern is a guy that absolutely will push for playing time on the offensive line. I think there's some linebackers here that have joined in the summer that have some really interesting possibilities. Jaden Breaker is a guy that I've heard a lot about in terms of just how athletic and how gifted he is physically already. Just a guy that's ready to at least compete and play a little bit, but obviously with what they have in terms of their vets, that's going to be a little bit hard to crack a little bit more of a consistent rotation. So I would imagine most of the competition that comes with this freshman class is going to be at running back with Harlan Berry and JT Lindsey, certainly on the offensive line with guys like Carius Kern and Solomon Thomas, Tyler Miller, and then in the secondary as well with some of the pieces that they've added between DJ Pickett, Aiden Anding, and some of the other guys that they have in the secondary. So those are all positions that kind of needed an influx of talent with younger players, and I think that LSU feels really good about how much this class could maybe impact winning in 2025 and not just in 2026 or 2027.
And then another one kind of that's came up the last couple of days with some of these off-season videos where you've seen the physical development in these workout videos, whether it's bench press or power clean. Dominic McKinley is someone you've seen in these videos consistently. How important is his development from his freshman year to now his sophomore year for LSU's success in 2025?
Yeah, it's going to be important because, I think defensive line and in particular defensive tackle, there's probably not a spot on the field, offense or defense, that it gets, more rotation than that position group. And LSU is going to need, McKinley, it's going to need Ahmad Breaux, it's going to need Bernard Gooden, it's going to need Jacobian Guillory, Sadir Mitchell, maybe one of the freshmen in Zion Williams or Brandon Brown or somebody. Like, they're going to need a healthy mix of 6 or 7 guys that can rotate. And you saw it last year, when Jacobian Guillory went down, they really had to lean heavily on Ahmad Breaux. They had to lean heavily on Dominic McKinley, and those are 2 guys that have a lot of promise and a lot of future potential there. They got some really good reps last year, but there were some moments and certainly some times there where LSU struggled on the interior because of it, because they just didn't have the quality depth that they needed to. And so I think that was a major point of emphasis this offseason in terms of the additions that they made. And look, McKinley specifically, he's going to be extremely important to this thing in terms of not only eating some space, but he's a guy that can maybe have a little bit more wiggle room and get into the backfield a little bit more consistently. And I think he's somebody that pairs really well with Bernard Gooden, the guy that they brought in from UCF, who I think is going to have a lot of playing opportunities. And obviously, I think he pairs well with Lamar Brown too, who's really good, just kind of interior presence there that's going to never give you a lack of effort in terms of just getting making plays and trying to hold up plays at the line of scrimmage.
Last one I have for you is something we've asked a couple of the guys that cover the team that have come on the last week or so. We asked Wilson, I think Jacques as well. Number 18 is obviously a discussion that comes up every offseason of who's going to get to don that number. And I think on defense you have a handful of options that it could go to, like a Whit Weeks or Jacoby and Guillory. But on offense, it doesn't feel like there's quite as many names that come up. And the one that Lloyd actually threw out the first time a couple weeks ago we've kind of thought about ever since then is Garrett Nussmeier wearing the number because he really does fit all of the criteria that 18 kind of holds. What is your likelihood or your guess on the likelihood of Nussmeier swapping from 13 to 18, or if there's any other alternative names you can think of to wear that number?
Yeah, I don't hate Nussmeier not wearing 18. I think he probably sticks with 13. That would be my guess. But I think if you're looking for a guy on offense, I would look at Chris Hilton. Honestly, I think he's a guy that maybe could fit that 18 mold. I mean, he's somebody that has been in the program now for 4 or 5 years, and is being brought by Coach Kelly on this trip to Atlanta next week. And Coach Kelly doesn't just bring anybody on those SEC media days. He brings leaders. He brings guys who are very highly valued in the program and have good voices in the program. And let's face it, I don't think there's been many players that have gone through what Chris Hilton's gone through in his career in terms of just the constant injuries and always sticking with it and wanting to play for this state and play in this program. So I think he fits the mold of a guy that would be a really good 18. I think Whit Weeks on the defensive side of the ball makes a lot of sense. West Weeks, Jacoby and Guillory. There are certainly a couple guys there that I think make a lot of sense. So we'll see. I don't have a good indication one way or the other who's going to wear that number, but there are certainly some options, I think, on both sides of the ball. And I think Hilton and Nuss on offense are both really good choices. And Weeks and Guillory are good choices on defense.
Tell me this doesn't hit like crack.
It hits pretty hard. I like it. That's a good edit too. I don't know who put that edit together. That's a good job there.
That's Grok, I believe. That's some AI.
Oh,
work
Grok!
there.
He's out of timeout.
Okay.
Grok has been on one lately.
But I do have one last question, actually, because you bring up Chris Hilton. I want to get your reaction to. I think Garrett Nussmeier and Whit Weeks were kind of shoe-ins, easy guesses for the trip to SEC Media Days. I would say Chris Hilton was maybe the surprise out of the three. What was your reaction to seeing Hilton get the nod to go with Kelly to SEC Media Days, and kind of what that means by that choice?
Yeah, I think it means kind of what I just said, that he's a very valued leader on this program and somebody who's obviously been through a lot in his career. He came in with Garrett Nussmeier as in 2021 as freshman, and he was one of the 5-star darling gets in that class for LSU as a 5-star receiver from Zachary, and just has taken him a little bit longer to find his footing in the program or find his way to the field, just because of all the injuries that he's gone or suffered through here during his first few years. But I'll say this about Chris Hilton, and I've said this pretty consistently, like he and Nussmeier have a pretty natural, organic chemistry on the field that is just really hard to find. It took him a little while when he was getting back from injury, and I know people were jumping on him a little bit because he was maybe hopping a little bit too early on some of those deep balls, but by the time the Oklahoma game and the Baylor game got here, you had a chance to really see how valuable a piece he can be in this program when Nussmeier is behind center. And I think those two just have a really natural chemistry on the field together. And I think if he's able to stay healthy, and I know that's an if right now because he just hasn't been able to do it throughout the entirety of his career. But if he can stay healthy, I think he's going to be a major player in this passing offense in 2025 and be a real consistent vertical threat for Nussmeier, but also somebody that I think can make some plays in the middle of the field and pick up some big yards after the catch as well.
Well, Glenn, we appreciate your time, appreciate you joining us, and obviously all of the very good insight and information you gave us. We'll talk again soon.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Yep, thank
Glenn,
you.
real quick, what led to what was the impetus behind that purchase over there on the wall? Did you paint that yourself, or was just this caught your eye?
I've been asked about that a couple times, and I've done interviews in here. My brother actually painted that, so that's a West original right there, Stan West original. So he painted that for my grandmother when she was kind of in her later stages of life, and she was a big Elephants fan, so he painted that for her.
It's like the Stan West version of Starry Night.
Yeah, it's a really cool painting, and we like it. So we have it hanging up here in our apartment now.
Excellent.
All right.
Caught my eye.
Yeah, no, definitely. We appreciate you once again.
All right, thanks, guys.